Well, Senator Warren, it's a very busy day on Capitol Hill, and another high-profile hearing that's taking place is Tulsi Gabbard for Director of National Intelligence. Now, Tulsi Gabbard served our country in uniform, but she's also at times amplified Russian propaganda. She's been, in my opinion, an Assad apologist after she met with him several years ago and failed to call out some of the human rights abuses he took part in. Do you believe she'll be confirmed? Is there any sort of bipartisan concerns about her running our national security apparatus?
Oh, listen, there are plenty of concerns. Most everybody in the Senate understands the threat she poses. And I just want to make sure everyone understands the job she would have here. She would be the #1 person in charge of all of our secrets, right? All of our intelligence, everything we gather from around the world, and every one of our allies around the world who feed us information, which makes our information more valuable. And that's how we make decisions about where to move, where risks are, where our armies need to be, all of that. She would be the person at the top. And there are a lot of folks who just believe the evidence shows she's in Vladimir Putin's pocket. So here's the deal. It's just like with RFK. The Democrats are prepared to say no, 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 and vote that way. The Republicans know the threat that these people pose. They are the ones, just a handful, have to have the backbone to stand up and say no. With RFK, just a few Republicans to say no, and the rest of us can protect our children. With Tulsi Gabbard, just a few Republicans to say no, and our national security will be assured.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. So once again, we got to talk about Democrats embarrassing themselves, doing what has really become a glorified clown show that is happening in Congress, the Senate confirmation hearings, because all it is just Democrats raging against Republicans. And honestly, I understand why they do these things. I just personally think it's not helpful for Democrats to sit around and ask gotcha questions all day, because they're not particularly interested in having any real conversation about the core issues that are at play here. Okay. And I think this video right here is going to prove exactly what I'm talking about. As Tulsi was questioned by the Democrats on her qualifications to be the Director of National Intelligence. Now, I'm going to go ahead and play a clip of Tulsi telling her side of the story, and then we're going to get into what the Democrats were boohoo-whining and crying about. So without further ado, roll the clip.
I'm honored and grateful to President Trump for his trust and confidence in nominating me to serve our country as the Director of National Intelligence at a time when trust in the intelligence community, unfortunately, is at an all-time low. Chuck Schumer admitted a few years ago, quote, "You take on the intelligence community, they have 6 ways from Sunday at getting back at you." For too long, faulty, inadequate, or weaponized intelligence have led to costly failures and the undermining of our national security and God-given freedoms enshrined in the Constitution. The most obvious example of one of these failures is our invasion of Iraq, based upon a total fabrication or complete failure of intelligence. This disastrous decision led to the deaths of tens of thousands of American soldiers, millions of people in the Middle East, mass migration, destabilization, and undermining of the security and stability of our European allies, the rise of ISIS, strengthening of al-Qaeda and other Islamist jihadist groups, and strengthening Iran. Here are just a few other examples. The American people elected Donald Trump as their president not once but twice, and yet the FBI and intelligence agencies were politicized by his opponents to undermine his presidency and falsely portray him as a puppet of Putin. Title I of FISA was used illegally to obtain a warrant to spy on Trump campaign advisor Carter Page, using a Clinton campaign-funded false dossier as their so-called evidence. Biden campaign advisor Tony Blinken was the impetus for the 51 former senior intelligence officials' letter dismissing Hunter Biden's laptop as disinformation, specifically to help Biden win the election. Former DNI James Clapper lied to this committee in 2013, denying the existence of programs that facilitated the mass collection of millions of Americans' phone and internet records, yet was never held accountable. Under John Brennan's leadership, the CIA abused its power to spy on Congress, to dodge oversight, lied about doing it until he was caught, and yet has never been held responsible. Under Biden, the FBI abused its power for political reasons to try to surveil Catholics who attend traditional Latin Mass, labeling them as quote-unquote radical traditionalist Catholics. Personally, just 24 hours after I criticized Kamala Harris and her nomination, I was placed on a secret domestic terror watch list called Quiet Skies. Sadly, there are more examples. The bottom line is this must end. President Trump's re-election is a clear mandate from the American people to break this cycle of failure, end the weaponization and politicization of the intelligence community, and begin to restore trust in those who've been charged with the critical task of securing our nation.
Yeah, so you seen that, you heard that. Now, just like RFK, just like Kash Patel, what Democrats are worried about when it comes to Tulsi Gabbard is not whether or not she is qualified, okay, because their standards for qualifications doesn't have anything to do with how well she can do the job. It has everything to do with whether or not she's going to toe the establishment line. Okay, and clearly Tulsi is not doing that. Okay, Tulsi is calling out the abuses of our intelligence agencies against the American people. She's calling out the fake propaganda that was pushed on the American people in order to justify endless wars. And that is what they really don't like. This is what they're really upset about. And this is why throughout this whole confirmation hearing, Democrats were hell-bent on trying to smear Tulsi Gabbard as a so-called Russian asset. Despite the fact that this woman has served in the United States military, she has served this country. Okay, she has been willing to fight and die for this country. The Democrats, again, they are trying to say that, well, she's some type of traitor who's working on behalf of Putin. This came up a lot during this confirmation hearing.
I want to make certain that in no way does Russia get a pass in either your mind or your heart, or in any policy recommendation you would make or not make.
Senator, I'm offended by the question because my sole focus, commitment, and responsibility is about our own nation, our own security, and the interests of the American people. In carrying out the responsibilities of the Director of National Intelligence, if confirmed, no country, group, or individual will get a pass. In my fulfilling that responsibility of providing that full intelligence picture so that you all can make the best informed policy decisions for the safety, security, and freedom of the American people. You have my commitment to be completely objective, unbiased, and apolitical, and I hope you understand my commitment to our country's interest.
Can't we do better than somebody who doesn't believe in 702? Can't we believe that somebody who can't answer whether Snowden was a traitor 5 times today, who made excuses for Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine, the first time that I'm aware of any American official has done that? I'm questioning her judgment. That's the issue that's at stake here. And as you said, and I totally agree, this is about our intelligence officers. And you cannot answer. Most of what we do here is in secret. This is one of the very few opportunities that you will ever have to have a conversation with this panel in public. And the record is going to be very clear about the position you took with regard to Edward Snowden. And the record is going to be very clear about your reaffirmation of the statements you made in the middle of the night when Russia was invading the free country of Ukraine. And I hope we will take that in consideration when we have this vote.
Yeah, so you seen that, you heard that. Democrats are hell-bent on trying to smear Tulsi Gabbard as a puppet of Putin. Okay, she's a Russian asset. Now, what they're not concerned about is the truth. Okay, they're not concerned about the truth at all. What they're concerned about is protecting the narrative. Okay, they want to maintain a tight grip on what the American people believe about certain foreign policy decisions that the United States makes. Okay, and again, Tulsi has been in opposition to the establishment narrative when it comes to foreign policy. And this is why they don't want her to be the director of national intelligence. And I think this exchange right here between Mark Kelly, who's a Democrat senator from Arizona. And Tulsi really is going to highlight what I'm talking about, how Democrats are not concerned about the truth as much as they're concerned about the narrative.
Senator Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Colonel Gabbard, when Russia was denying us use of chemical weapons, they accused the U.S. of supporting terrorists. This is a line that Putin used frequently during the Syrian civil war as he supported Assad. Syrian officials made similar comments. They did it repeatedly. They did it in public. They did it at the United Nations. In 2016, you gave an interview in which you said, and this is a quote, "The U.S. is providing direct and indirect support to terrorist groups in order to overthrow the Syrian government." And in 2019, on the Democratic presidential debate stage, you said of President Trump, this is a quote, "This current president is continuing to betray us. We were supposed to be going after al-Qaeda, but over years now, not only have we not gone after al-Qaeda, our president is supporting al-Qaeda." So I'm interested to hear, what was your goal in saying these things? And did you consider, before saying them, the motives of Iran and Russia, what their motives might have been before making these claims?
Senator, as someone who enlisted in the military specifically because of al-Qaeda's terrorist attack on 9/11 and committing myself and my life to doing what I could to defeat these terrorists, it was shocking and a betrayal to me and every person who was killed on 9/11, their families and my brothers and sisters in uniform. When, as a member of Congress, I learned about President Obama's dual programs that he had begun really to overthrow the regime of Syria, and being willing to, through the CIA's Timber Sycamore program that has now been made public, of working with and arming and equipping al-Qaeda in an effort to overthrow that regime, starting yet another regime change war in the Middle East. DoD train and equip program, again, begun under President Obama, is widely been known, looked at, and studied, that ultimately resulted in over $500 million being used to train who they called moderate rebels, but were actually fighters working with and aligned with al-Qaeda's affiliate on the ground in Syria, all to move forward with their regime change and not acknowledging what was obvious at the time and what has unfortunately borne true, which was that a regime change war in Syria, much like the regime change wars in Iraq, the toppling of Gaddafi and Mubarak, while these are all dictators, would likely result in the rise of Islamist extremists like al-Qaeda taking power. I shed no tears for the fall of the Assad regime, but today we have an Islamist extremist who is now in charge of Syria, as I said, who danced on the streets to celebrate the 9/11 attack, who ruled over Idlib with an Islamist extremist governance, and who has already begun to persecute and kill and arrest religious minorities like Christians in Syria.
I understand.
Why that should be acceptable to anyone is beyond me.
It shouldn't
is
be.
certainly
and
not in our
interest. I
Kelly.
appreciate your answer, and thank you. My concern has to do with the tendency to repeat Russian and Syrian, and even in some cases, I think we'll get into in the closed session, Iranian information, and to discount what comes from our intelligence community.
Wow.
Senator, every American deserves to know that people in our own government were providing support to our sworn enemy, al-Qaeda. That should not be acceptable by anyone.
Thank you.
Wow. Wow. Do you guys understand what was just said there? Do you guys understand what Mark Kelly just openly admitted? He's not concerned about the truth. He cannot dispute one thing that Tulsi said. When Tulsi was warning about the United States arming radical jihadist extremists in Syria to fight Assad, right, to topple him, she was right. But the establishment, the Democrats, and also the neocons as well too, they said, oh no, that's a Putin talking point. That's a Russian and Iranian talking point. But it also was the truth. And we know it was the truth because ultimately the Islamic extremists ended up toppling Assad. I mean, he fled, okay? And now the country is being run by Islamic extremists, which is exactly what Tulsi was warning about. So Mark Kelly can't dispute that what Tulsi said was the truth. And not only was it true, but it ended up happening. What she was warning about ended up happening. He's not concerned about that. What he's concerned about is that, well, you didn't play ball. You told the truth. We didn't want you to tell the truth. We didn't want you to come out here and say what was actually happening. We didn't like that. This is our government, guys. These are our politicians. They have no concern whatsoever for telling the American people the actual truth. All they're concerned about is protecting their narrative, justifying, arming Islamic extremists, toppling dictators, achieving whatever foreign policy goals they have, which is mostly related to opening up markets, right? Trying to make corporate America richer. Okay, that's the vast majority of the reason why we fight these wars. Okay, warrantless spying on the American people. Can't forget about that. That's also part of the reason why a lot of these Democrats and some Republicans are iffy on Tulsi because she doesn't support Section 702 that essentially allows the government to spy on Americans. If they're somehow, some way connected to some foreign terror threat, they can kind of take a backdoor in order to spy on Americans, okay? Something that has been abused for a long time now. They're more concerned about that than the truth. You know, it's one thing to come out here and just tell me, hey, look, we want to topple this dictator because he's not playing ball with us, and we feel like this is better for our foreign policy interests. If you tell me that straight up, at least I can respect that. I can respect that and say, well, you know, I may not agree with the reasoning behind it, but hey, at least you're telling me exactly why you want to do it, right? And I can decide at that point, do I want to support it, right? Is it worth it, right? Kind of like what President Trump did with Greenland, where he just flat out said, listen, it has a lot of natural resources. It is of strategic and military interest, and we want it, right? He didn't say, oh, well, we need to liberate them from Denmark and spread democracy, right? He didn't lie about the reason why he's interested in acquiring Greenland or even the Panama Canal. He said straight up, economic reasons. I can respect that. I can respect that. What I can't respect is for people to lie to me about why we're doing what we're doing and then smear anybody who tells the truth about why we're doing what we're doing as some type of foreign asset, right? Some type of spy, a traitor, which is what they're doing to Tulsi. When Tulsi was correct, she was correct in her assessment about Syria, 100% correct. But she's an Assad apologist. Okay, but was she right? Right? Was she right? Again, that is a way to avoid actually engaging in the real conversation. That's all it is. Because it's about protecting the narrative. That's what it's about. It's about protecting power and control. It's not about telling the truth and being honest with the American people. Because, I mean, listen, if you say, look, we need to arm these radical jihadists to take down Assad because we don't like him for X, Y, and Z reasons. Okay, well, hey, I may agree or disagree with it, right? But at least you're being honest about it. No, that's not what they do. That's not what they do. So, again, that exchange really shows you and tells you everything you need to know about what these politicians are concerned about, more so than anything. And it's sad. It really is. It is sad that this is the current state of our politics, where you get smeared as a foreign asset. Even if you served in the military of the United States of America, you served this country, you get smeared as an asset for a foreign country, as a traitor for telling the truth. Everybody in Congress, in the Senate, in any of these politicians that have smeared Tulsi as some type of foreign agent, they should be ashamed of themselves. In fact, they should resign. They should resign. Because nobody that has served in the United States military should be smeared as some type of foreign agent for telling the truth. That should never happen. That is one of the most unpatriotic and un-American things that I've ever seen. And that's what's currently happening right now in our own Congress, right? You can agree or disagree with her politics, but to say that she's a foreign asset for telling the truth is crazy to me. Absolutely crazy. It's unacceptable. So Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.